Interesting. Okay, you recently started a company, guy. It's called Turnpike, right?
Yeah.
And it's also kind of related to this idea that we're talking about. Agents would predominantly dominate the bunch of financial transactions on the internet and elsewhere. They would want the capacity to hold capital and to deploy that capital for the purposes of participating in that commerce, right? Cloudflare is the biggest example here. I posted something on Coin Bureau Club as well, and so my primary thesis there is, they've been slowly building this out, right? So I think a couple of weeks back they put out a tweet which said agentic traffic on the internet has now surpassed human traffic. And so this is just the beginning, because this gap is only going to exceed as we have more and more agents go live on the internet.
Yeah.
Then a couple of weeks later, they announced, okay, we're now having a stablecoin rail, an agentic wallet, so an agent can have money on behalf of a user and then spend it. Now, their great advantage is that with the content delivery network and that they have, they're pretty much sitting on the front page of at least 15% of the internet. This is also an interesting opportunity because today, when web scraping happens, which is how foundationally all the models got their raw data for pre-training, a lot of court cases are going on. Like New York Times sued OpenAI that, hey, you basically scraped my entire website and you didn't pay me a dime for it. And like the same thing happened elsewhere as well. So this clearly is an opportunity for people to start making money through that process. Curious as to your thesis on agentic commerce, and why did you decide to be a part of this project? If you can share some details around what that vision looks like, and what does success mean in the agentic commerce space?
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah. Let's start by going back to what you were saying about this increase in AI agent traffic. This is something that Cloudflare have recently flagged up, and as you say, this is the sort of thing that grows exponentially because one agent may spin up various sub-agents to do it, a customized AI agent, or just an LLM responding to a prompt. When they do that, they are in order to get the answer to your question or to your request, they are visiting a hell of a lot more of the internet than a regular human would do making that search. If you or I were looking up something manually, we might visit 5-10 websites or whatever to get our answer. An agent can quite easily visit 50 to 100 in order to get that. So that traffic is multiplying all the time, and what this is basically doing is that it is changing the economic model of the internet, because up until now, the internet has been, by and large, humans looking at websites, human visits, and that's built around basically an ad revenue model. Websites mostly support themselves via advertising because they're confident that they will get visitors who will come on their site to read the article or buy the thing or whatever, and they'll see an advert, and that's how they make money. Of course, bots, AI agents don't read ads. So what you've got is this situation where an increasing amount of data is being scraped from across the web, not only not being paid for, but also driving away human visitors as well and hurting the bottom line of so many of these websites. So what we are aiming to do with Turnpike is basically to give websites an option to they can install our software, which comes in the form of a plugin, and that basically throws up a kind of virtual toll booth, if you like. If it detects an AI visitor, then it issues a payment request in USDC on base. These are generally micropayments we're talking about here. 1 cent or less. Whereas human users are allowed through as normal. And we think, and it seems that Cloudflare agree with us, that this new internet, this new bot-led internet, where eventually I think human users will become a rounding error when compared to all the agents and bots and what have you. That today's economic model just doesn't work. So AI has to pay for the data it scrapes. And the simple reason it has to do that is because if it wants to keep getting high quality data, then it needs to pay for it, because otherwise the websites that provide it will just go under. That there has to be an economic incentive. So what we're trying to do is to be part of this new, this shift in basically the whole economics of the web. Whilst at the same time, giving these people who maintain these websites and provide this data that answers our AI queries for us, giving them power and an incentive, to earn from it and to keep doing it. And that's how we think the web survives. Because, it's that old saying, isn't it? If you're not paying for something, then you are the product. What we're moving towards now is like if something isn't being paid for, then it's not going to be worth having eventually. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. And Cloudflare is kind of is on this as well with their monetization gateway and their agent wallet. Coinbase is has developed the X402 protocol, which is what Cloudflare is using, and we're using at Turnpike as well. And this, as a crypto person, as someone who's covered crypto for the best part of the last decade, this is exciting for me because this uses blockchain technology. This provides a genuine use case for crypto as well.
You brought up X402, which is interesting because I wanted to talk about the choices that are available for agents to do so in terms of payment protocols, right? So you have X402, which is Coinbase-led a consortium of a bunch of other companies as well. And then recently, sometime in the recent past, you had a company called Tempo which came up, and they raised a shit ton of money in the market, and they had launched their own agentic payment protocol. If I remember, I think it was called MPP, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if Google is part of the X402, but Google was also working on some kind of an agentic payment protocol. I don't know if it was the same or different. Just like you have these different payment networks in the real world, like you have a MasterCard payment network or a Visa and in India, we have RuPay, which was created. So we don't have to send so much money on credit card transactions to a foreign bank. We might keep it in India, which is why UPI, which has been such a big success, a lot of it happens through the RuPay network, right? So because we wanted to keep that money to ourselves. But agents are operating on the open web, right? Which was what they will supposedly be. My question is, where is the value capture in all of this? I always personally feel people who will own the end user relationship capture the value, which is why we have the fat app thesis in the first case, right? Like Solana, I was looking at earlier today, guy before our call, the top 4 revenue generating protocols on Solana make more money than Solana, make more money than Hyperliquid and almost all the blockchains. When I extrapolate that to a sector like agentic finance, immediately I think, it's kind of this correlation, like all of those applications generating millions of transactions on the Solana network, similar to how the protocol X402 would basically be processing transactions. So it wasn't the settlement layer which captured the value or any of the middleware. It was the end layer, which was one step up function from the end user who was willing to pay for that convenience of whatever application, access to a token, discovery of a token, buying and selling, whatever. And they ended up keeping the reward for themselves. I'm curious, when you look at the monetization side of these AI agents, everybody gets to understand the scale. But what I have a hard time understanding is who captures the bulk of the value. Is this going to be the website which interacts with that agent and sells his data to another agent and keeps the money for himself? Or is this going to be somebody who's operating on that BIPs, which is... And I don't have details on the X402. I don't know if Coinbase keeps a percentage of the BIPs. Or is it the company like Turnpike or Cloudflare, which will serve this at scale and keep a cut for themselves? Like, when you look at this market, where do you think the value capture will be? Because blockchains clearly tell me it's going to be the apps.
Yeah. I mean, I think, as far as we're concerned, we want most of the value to be captured by the people providing the product, by provide the website that provides this data that the AI agent needs, because we feel that that's how it should be. You provide a service, someone is willing to pay for it. You should capture that value. Now, in terms of how the likes of Cloudflare and we at Turnpike intend to capture value ourselves, because obviously we're not building this thing just for the love of it. Then our revenue model will work on. We will take a small percentage of each transaction, as the middleware, as the facilitator. But really, the way this should work is that most of the value, as I said, goes to the provider. I think there is a small like subcent, maybe a thousandth or 100th of a cent using the X402 facilitator. But I think this has been one of the big sort of fundamental shifts in crypto over the last few years, hasn't it? It's like, it should be that the layer one should not, or the underlying blockchain shouldn't really be the one capturing the value, because this is one of the reasons that blockchain was invented, that crypto came up, because these settlement layers were taking this huge chunk. Moving money around was becoming so expensive. So really, the value should be captured by the end user, providing the service, the data that is so badly needed.
If I try to reason by analogy, and I think through the PayPal days when PayPal came about, it came out because internet was very new. Digital commerce was extremely new, like 2000, 2001, you remember, computers were just coming out. There were no mobile phones. And so early e-commerce were asking folks to put in their credit card, but there was no party to trust. Right?
Yeah.
Which is why PayPal had such an incredible opportunity to build something new. They did, and they captured that value. Today, people are already comfortable. I mean, I have my credit card details on the Google Chrome file, so I'm trusting Google. It's because I need the convenience of being able to easily pay my subscriptions or whatever, right? Shop online. So clearly the users are ready. I mean, that mental blockage, right? Barrier does not exist. But the problem was trust, which is what PayPal came in and solved. So what do agentic commerce protocols like X402 and Turnpike, which is also using that technology, is this the trust layer for, is that a good analogy to think about? It's the trust layer for AI agents, or is this a convenient way for website owners to start monetizing the content that they created, which is their IP, which is today being just scraped and used by AI frontier labs for training purposes? Like, is that where it's going to end, or tomorrow it's going to be something like I am on Amazon, and I'm just talking to my agent on my phone. I ask him to look up the latest iPhone, and it already has access to my wallet, and it just goes and does a transaction for me on my behalf. Like, is that what it's going to be? It's going to manage all of my automatic payments. What is the problem that agentic commerce solves that current solutions do not, which work really well for me? Like, I have my card on record. I just go and pay whatever I have to. Most of my subscriptions are anyways automatic, like they're recurring. So my X subscription goes just like that or whatever. So I'm just trying to reason my through of what's missing. Am I paying more? Is that the problem? Or is this inconvenient? Is that the problem? Or that AI frontier model companies are scraping my content without my permission, and so I ought to monetize that, and that's the problem.
It's an interesting question. I mean, we feel that, from our point of view, you have your IP, you should be able to charge for that. Data is a commodity. Data is something that AI and human users can't do without. So there does need to be a way to monetize that first and foremost. How the infrastructure around that grows up is, this is something that we're kind of waiting to see how this all plays out. Yeah, there's a good point to be made. It's like how much control do you want to give an agent? Is this how is this necessarily going to benefit the human user? I feel that probably we're moving towards an idea where, you might have an agent who manages certain things for you, but within very sort of strict parameters. You have to be careful to only give it access to a certain amount of money, and you can fund an agent's wallet, and that's the budget that it has. So it's not going to go. There's no risk of it going crazy on $100,000 shopping sprees across the internet. But we're thinking very much at this first step at the moment, which is that there needs to be some sort of toll booth, some sort of way for website owners to go, no, if you want this data, you pay for it. If not, then go elsewhere to get it. And of course, we rely on network effects for that, because at the start, AI will go to somewhere else to get the data. So if we can get enough people, and this is why when we heard that Cloudflare was doing a similar thing, the initial reaction was, oh God, we're up against Cloudflare. This is bad news. But then you're like, well, no, because they are justifying a small upstart company like we are, saying, oh, well, at some point AI is going to have to start paying for the data it scrapes. It's like, it's a nice idea and it might happen, but who are we to say? It's like when Cloudflare starts saying that, who, as you pointed out earlier, the CDN for a huge chunk of the web, then people have to listen. I think that's the clearest signal of the way this is going.
And a question came to my head when you were explaining this to me. But is this a replacement, then another way to think about it, to existing payment gateway companies? Like, I won't need them anymore, and so it's an existing market that exists, which is better off on the blockchain using this technology. And then B, there's the net new market. Like today, the agents are working on my behalf, but there will be a day when the underlying intelligence itself is sufficiently evolved that it's no longer working for me, it is working with me as my colleague or individual, and a personified intelligence like we are. And in which case, they would need the infrastructure like we do for, let's say buying energy or compute from a neocloud or from a crypto inference network to keep themselves up and running, and then kind of pursue their own goals. And so eventually, like, agents would also be making money using the network and paying for that with like technologies like this. Like, is that how you see the markets evolve?
I think so. Yeah, I think we will end up with this kind of parallel agentic economy that those of us in the meat space don't really touch, don't really interact with all that much. Because one of the things with building Turnpike, and one of the reasons why X402 was so exciting, was because suddenly it made these sorts of payments possible. Because micropayments have been talked about for a long, long time. They have been a thing for a long, long time. But existing banking solutions, credit cards and what have you, they just don't work for micropayments, because you can't be signing off a request for a tenth of a cent, every few seconds or something like that. It's impossible. But of course, agents, to do the work that we're expecting them to do, may eventually be needing to do these requests, sometimes hundreds of times for every task. So, yeah, they need a separate system that works as fast as they do. We're not expected to be in that loop because we just don't have the capacity to deal with it.
Most payment companies have to get a payment services license or a money service business license to be a part of, to participate in this financial infrastructure stack. I don't think that's true for agentic payment frameworks right now, but you see like the Congress or, the governments in the world, they would also start to identify this once it's big enough and have like rules and regulations, or is this always going to be this like, crypto thing, like fully trustless, decentralized, and, code as the law, not some 50 people in a Congress deciding what the law is supposed to be with respect to these technologies?
Well, my mind goes to Benjamin Franklin. There are two certainties in life: death and taxes. And I guess once Congress, once governments see just how much, just what is going on in these rails, they will think, yes, we would like a slice of that. Thank you very much. It will be much harder to do because this will be part of a global system, and it will probably require the sort of coordination that is just not really possible at the moment. But yeah, I think maybe that'll be the sign that agentic commerce has made it, when governments start wanting to come in and control it. I think that's probably inevitable. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one for them to do.
Great. Thank you, Guy, for spending so much time with me. I want to bring this podcast to an end with the last question. And that's going to be around Ethereum. Last week, the entire Ethereum community is up at arms against each other because there was a new proposal that came in which wanted to reduce the issuance of the yield that Ethereum stakers get for securing the network, right? Thoughts on this fight that's brewing? I mean, on one side, the group against it, their core concern is that you're trying to financial engineer something where rather your primary focus should be to grow on-chain businesses on the Ethereum network, because if you have that flywheel running and you have on-chain businesses like Solana has, right, eventually you will have enough of a revenue capture that the burn will take care of the monetary side of Ethereum itself. On the other side, right, the people who basically made this proposal, I think their core argument is that we're giving so much away for issuance, the ETH staking ratio today is 33%. So anyway, it's going to take a long time before we get to 50%. And so it's only tapering down, right? Which is how it's supposed to be, because you don't have to pay so much for Ethereum security. Which side of the debate do you, rest on? What do you think about this? Ethereum is a very important protocol. Curious to the future of Ethereum. They're going through this troubled times where they had to downsize 20% of the workforce. Now you have new emergent like other entities who are the same people who used to work at the foundation, who are now coming together to run their independent entities and do it from outside in. And now this has happened. What is your thought? Should we reduce the Ethereum staking rate, or they would much rather be better off trying to, do it the hard way, which is to grow the business?
Well, I mean, I guess I tend to look at it from the point of view of security, and the entities that we're hoping are going to keep building on Ethereum, the ones that are building there at the moment and the ones that we hope are going to build there in the future, they need that security guarantee, and obviously that is the main reason that the staking yield exists in the first place. It's to incentivize people to stake and help secure the network. So I'm kind of naturally wary of anything that that moves away from that. I do see the argument. I just wonder whether this is the time to be having it, because without security, without that immutability, what you've got is essentially worthless, I think. So, yeah, my short answer is I think whatever security has to be prioritized, and I haven't seen enough of the debate yet to know quite how that will impact on security if you reduce that yield.
Yeah, but the way I think about it is through the lens of Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin does not offer any yield, which means the miners who are spending real energy out there to protect the network, their only upside is the annual return on Bitcoin itself, right? The price of Bitcoin going up in the market. Why can't the market decide, what the incentive for the stakers should be, right? Not having a yield still gives them access to the upside of Ethereum. It's just surprising to me that there's so much debate happening on staking yield right now, right? When you have a clear example on the other side of a protocol which does not have that, and yet it somehow functions because the game theory works. What do you think about Bitcoin versus Ethereum? Do you think it's not a right way to think about it because they're fundamentally two different security protocols, different ways of securing a blockchain, and so yields are important?
The thing with Bitcoin is that generally there is a lot of concern, I think, in going forward about how it is going to maintain itself. Because at the moment, the block reward thing works pretty well, although, we're seeing a lot of Bitcoin miners drop off, to basically go to AI, which is more profitable.
Yeah.
And, Bitcoin in its current form does not generate enough in fees to incentivize that. Now, obviously, the network is so beautifully constructed that, if more miners drop off, then that increases the reward for those who are left, which should encourage more to join, etc., etc. But there is that real concern going forward about how Bitcoin sustain itself as the block reward halves every 4 years. Can it sustain itself through fees alone? On current trajectory, no, by the look of it. So, yeah, that's that, and Ethereum with its yield. I mean, that in a way solves that particular problem.
Wonderful. That brings me to the end of this podcast, Guy. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking out so much time of your busy schedule. It was wonderful. I learned a lot, and genuinely thankful.
Thank you, Rohit. It was a pleasure. Really good fun. Thanks for having me on. Great to talk through such a wide range of topics with you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you.